A man walks into a bar and vanishes without a trace hours later. The mysterious disappearance of Brian Shaffer in the early hours of April 1st, 2006 is an unsolvable mystery to this day. How can a man disappear from a bar without getting captured on CCTV? Why did he disappear? Where is he now? Join us as we look at the evidence and explore theories and conspiracies to find the most likely answer to this perplexing mystery. So, who was Brian Shaffer? Brian Shaffer was a second-year medical student in Ohio State. He was born on February 25, 1979, in Pickerington, Ohio. His parents were Randy and Renee Shaffer. He had a younger brother named Derek. He loved Pearl Jam, and his dream was to get a band together, own an island, and listen to Buffett all day while drinking margaritas with his senorita. In short, he was a simple guy. The year before he disappeared, Brian's mom, Renee, was diagnosed with a rare type of blood cancer called myelodysplastic syndrome, MDS. Brian loved his mom so much, so this news hit him hard. For him, Renee was the greatest and most wonderful person in the world. It was also around this time that Brian started dating a fellow med student, Alexis Wagoner. Most people who knew the couple believed that they were serious with each other. Renee loved Alexis and encouraged Brian to propose soon. She gave them a gift, a trip to Miami, Florida for their upcoming spring break. On March 6, 2006, 3 weeks before Brian's disappearance, Renee passed away. Brian was devastated. He had a difficult time coping with the loss. At one point, he even asked Alexis to run away with him. Whether it was a joke or not, only Brian knew. A week after, just a few days before his disappearance, he told Alexis that she should find someone else because he was in a dark place. Alexis refused, so the couple remained together. They still planned to go to Miami. Then spring break began. Brian was exhausted, having pulled all-nighters to prepare for his finals. Not to mention his emotional upheaval in the past month. He needed to de-stress. On March 31st, Brian had dinner with his dad to celebrate. Aside from finishing the finals, it was suspected that Brian was going to propose in Miami. They were flying out on the coming Monday. Though bittersweet, it was time for Brian to start moving forward with his life. Brian also called his brother Derek, inviting him and his girlfriend, Maureen, to join him at the Ugly Tuna Saloona after the comedy show they were going to watch that night. But the show ran late, and the couple was tired, so they just headed home instead. That was the last time the brothers talked to each other. After dinner around 9 p.m., Brian met up with his friend William Clint Florence. The plan was to do a bar crawl, one shot at every bar in Columbus's University District. They started out at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, located on North High Street in the South Campus Gateway Complex. They planned to drink their way to the Arena District. Around 10 p.m., Alexis called Brian. She was in Toledo to visit her parents before their trip to Miami. Brian confirmed that they will be meeting on Monday morning and told her he loved her. Around midnight, Clint called his friend Meredith Reed to join them. They met her in the short north of the Arena District. She drove them back to the Ugly Tuna for the last round. They arrived at the bar around 1:15 a.m. CCTV footage showed the three of them riding the escalator, going to the bar's entrance, which was located on the second floor. Inside, they met two women, one of which was a student of Clint's from Ohio State. Security footage showed Brian outside the bar around 1:55 a.m. talking to the young women before walking away, no longer seen on camera. This footage was the last sighting of Brian Shaffer to this day. Since the camera didn't cover the bar's entrance, police weren't sure if Brian ever went back in. Nearing closing time, around 2 a.m., Clint and Meredith realized that they hadn't seen Brian in a while. Clint tried calling his phone, but there was no answer. They tried to look for him, even checking the men's bathroom, but he wasn't there. The pair waited outside the bar once it closed at 2 a.m. When they still couldn't see him, they assumed that he had gone home without telling them. Brian's apartment was only 6 blocks away, so he could have walked home. Meredith and Clint decided to go home as well. The next day, Meredith drove Clint to pick up his car from the parking lot of Brian's apartment building. They didn't check on him, though. That same day, Alexis called Brian. The call went to voicemail. At first, she thought that Brian might just be sleeping off a hangover, but subsequent calls to his phone all weekend still received no answer. Brian's dad, Randy, also tried to reach him by phone throughout that weekend. Nothing. So he went to Brian's apartment to look for him. He wasn't there, but there was nothing amiss. Brian's car was still parked outside. The bed was made. His medical books were stacked neatly on the shelves. All his personal belongings were still there. Derek also stopped by the apartment after his dad told him that Brian has been missing for 2 days. But the only person he found there was Alexis, who was waiting for Brian to come home. On Monday morning, April 3rd, Brian didn't show up for the flight to Miami. That's when they were sure that something was wrong. By this time, no one had heard or seen Brian since that night at the Ugly Tuna. There was no activity on his cell phone, bank accounts, and credit cards. Randy reported his disappearance to the police. During the first few days of the investigation, headed by Detective John Hurst, nearly 50 cops joined the search for Brian. They interviewed everyone, including Clint, Meredith, and the 2 women in the security footage. According to Clint, he had seen Brian after he came back into the bar, but eventually lost track of him in the crowd. Later on, Meredith and Clint were asked to take a lie detector test. While Meredith agreed, Clint refused. He hired an attorney and didn't want to talk with the police anymore. He no longer could be reached for comment. The police checked the bar, hospitals, homeless shelters, and even dumpsters and trash cans along Pearl Alley, a pathway that ran adjacent to the bar. Cadaver dogs were used to search for Brian's body. They even checked the banks of the Olentangy River for clues. There was nothing. Brian had simply vanished into thin air. At that time, no city in Ohio had more security cameras than Columbus. Law enforcement hoped that they could find some clues in the footage to help them shed light into this mystery. They looked at the footage from the surveillance camera that covered the bar's entrance. It showed the 3 friends riding the escalator to the 2nd floor at 1:15 a.m. Around 2 a.m., the footage showed only Clint and Meredith going down the escalator. Security footage from the camera covering the bar's emergency exit also didn't show Brian leaving. In fact, everyone who went inside the bar was accounted for, except for Brian. Even if there was a blind spot and Brian was able to leave the bar undetected by these 2 cameras, those installed by nearby bars, Sloppy Donkey, Mad Mex, Lucky Stouthouse, should have been able to pick up a trace of him passing by as he left the area. But there was nothing. Brian had vanished without a trace from the most watched city in Ohio. They posted missing person posters onto telephone poles. Randy had a website set up to ask the public for help. Various tips came in, telling them they saw Brian in different places such as Atlanta and Sweden. Some suggested that Brian was murdered. Others believed that he ran away. But nothing came in to give them proof of what really happened. In the following months, Randy, Derek, and Alexa didn't stop their search for Brian. Randy even hired psychics that led him to believe Brian could be found near the river. Both Derek and Alexis kept calling his phone, hoping for it to ring just once. One night in September 2006, it finally did ring when Alexis called. In fact, she got 3 rings before the call went to voicemail. However, the GPS on Brian's phone wasn't turned on. Pinging the phone showed that it was near a cell tower in the town of Hillard, 14 miles northwest of Columbus. Unfortunately, Brian's cellular provider stated that it was most likely a computer glitch. In May, just a few months after Brian's disappearance, someone broke into his apartment. However, the burglary wasn't in any way related to his disappearance. The case has grown cold, but the interest has never waned. 2 years after Brian's disappearance, authorities still had no clue as to where Brian was and why he disappeared, but they hadn't stopped investigating. Crime Stopper offered a $25,000 reward for information. In the same year, Randy, Brian's father, died in a freak accident. After a windstorm on his way to work, a tree branch fell on Randy, hitting him on the head. His body was discovered the next morning. In the span of 2 years, Derek had lost his mother, brother, and father, leaving him the only remaining living member of their tight-knit family. Days after Randy died, the Columbus Dispatch posted an obituary for him on their website. Friends and co-workers left tributes online. One message stood out. "Dad, I love you. Love, Brian. U.S. Virgin Islands." It was Brian's dream to live on an island, spending his days drinking cocktails while listening to Buffett. It seemed plausible. After all, he didn't need a passport to fly there, just a photo ID. But Columbus police traced the message to a public computer located in Franklin County. It was a hoax, and it wasn't the first one. In 2018, the Ugly Tuna Saloon where Brian disappeared closed its doors. In 2020, a photo of a homeless man in Tijuana started circulating online. The image was sent to Detective Blanche Tucker of the Columbus Police Missing Persons Unit, who sent a photo to the FBI for verification. The FBI used facial recognition software to determine if it was Brian. It wasn't. The following year, 15 years after Brian disappeared, the Ohio Attorney General's Bureau of Criminal Investigation and the Columbus Division of Police released an age progression image of what Brian may look like at that time. He disappeared when he was 27 years old. He would have been 42 then. Law enforcement hopes that this photo may lead to answers and give Brian's family and friends closure. The reward offered by the Central Ohio Crime Stoppers has increased to $100,000. To this day, there's still no answer to Brian's enigmatic disappearance. There are various theories, though. Some propose that Brian ran away to get away from the pressures of his life. Another theory was that Brian killed himself. There were also theories involving foul play, including one that pointed to the smiley face killer. But most of these theories aren't plausible. Brian, though grieving, was not according to friends and family. He had excellent grades, a loving family, and a woman that he planned to marry. He even called Alexis that night, confirming their plans for Miami. It would have been a very quick change of heart for him to walk away or kill himself. If he did kill himself, where is his body? According to Detective John Hurst, most people who commit want to be found. Now, let's say that he wanted to start a new life. Why didn't he touch any of his money? He didn't even use his credit card to pay for a flight to a tropical island. And most importantly, he didn't pack anything for his trip. Most people who run away at least bring some of their most precious possessions. Everything Brian had was still in his apartment. Security footage from any of the cameras in the surrounding area found no trace of him. Even if he changed clothes to disguise his appearance, where would he have gotten it? He didn't bring any type of bag with him. Even if he did, where did he hide it? There was another exit, one that led to a construction site. He might have left that way and died by accident. But his body has never been found. And the lead detective in the case mentioned that there really wasn't any place in the area where Brian could have fallen to his death without being discovered. Moreover, cadaver dogs couldn't find his scent anywhere. So many questions, no certain answers. But we do have an idea of what most likely happened. Our most basic assumption is that Brian is dead. As one of the most well-known missing persons to date, it's highly unlikely for him to remain anonymous with today's technology. Even his remaining family member, Derek, believes that his brother is dead. More importantly, there's no scrap of evidence to prove that he's alive. The questions we need to answer are as follows. When did he die? How did he die? And why did he die? Since he never showed up for the much-awaited trip to Miami, it's safe to say that Brian died before April 3rd. There's no activity on his phone and his accounts after the bar closed on the early hours of April 1st. So whatever happened to him occurred around 2 a.m. after he left the girls as seen on the footage, when calls to his phone went directly to voicemail. Since cadaver dogs and police searched every inch of the building and found nothing, it's safe to say that Brian didn't die inside the bar or anywhere within the building, including the construction site. If he died around 2 a.m. onwards and couldn't be traced anywhere inside the building, then he should have been able to leave the building. We know he didn't go down the escalator, but there was a stairwell and elevator that went down to the first floor service area near the Ugly Tuna's entrance. In the footage, Brian was last seen heading towards that direction. He could have gone down that stairwell unnoticed. A lot of the businesses on the ground floor kept their back doors open. Brian could have walked through any of those doors and out the front. Some of the cameras would pan from one direction to another. One camera installed at a nearby Wendy's was found to be defective. While it can be quite coincidental, stranger things have happened. Now the question is, what happened to Brian after he got out of the building? The area is pretty quiet. Not a lot of people would be hanging around. Moreover, it had a high crime rate at that time. It's highly possible that Brian met with foul play on his walk home. As to his body and belongings, the search for Brian only started after he didn't show up for their flight to Miami. The dumpsters could have been emptied, destroying any evidence that could lead to its discovery. And what about the pings to his phone? Remember, this happened in 2006. Technology wasn't so advanced back then. It was difficult to truly pinpoint a phone's location. The best result was to give a general area. In addition, the telco already stated that the ringing phone was due to a glitch in their system. To say that the company is lying would be the same as admitting that there's a large conspiracy working in the background. It's doubtful that Brian and his disappearance involved some powerful people. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the most likely explanation. Occam's razor. Now, whether we'll ever know if our solution is the answer to this truly puzzling mystery, it's all up to fate. If you love our content and want to support the channel, feel free to check our web shop where you can find exclusive true crime merch brought to you by Bad Things.